Welcome to The Maintenance Mindset, an audio-video podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Paul Rhodes, and over the more than 3 decades in the apartment industry, I've had roles that include being on-site, providing services as a vendor, creating and delivering multiple education programs, and active association work. This podcast is centered on the often overlooked role that our on-site maintenance workers play. You know, the men and women that respond in the middle of the night to the toilet call, or the after hours, it's really hot in my apartment request, or my favorite, my ring fell down the drain, get over here now. In other words, the often unsung heroes who are responsible for asset preservation and resident satisfaction. Working in multifamily maintenance provides interesting, sometimes amusing, and often fascinating stories and viewpoints. My encouragement to you is this: whatever you do it with a maintenance mindset. How are you today? I want to talk about something today based on what happened. Now, where you're at, what's the temperature outside? This week, the beginning of 2025, at the end of January, when I'm recording this, it's cold. It's actually been below freezing here in Georgia for the past 4 days. For over a week, we've barely gotten above freezing. So the outside temperature's been a challenge. And the topic of discussion today actually comes from something happened around that surrounds that. Now, this past week, my daughter's car broke down. It had a mechanical issue that required some intervention, I guess, is the most, adult way of saying it. And she called in a panic, and we got her car over to the side of the road and out of the way. I discovered that it required replacement of one of the terminals on a battery. What caused that to go bad? I don't know, age or temperature, but for whatever happened, it was a fairly simple repair to make that was made all the more complicated because it was 21 degrees outside with a wind chill of 9. Now, if I'm honest, I don't enjoy working on cars. I can, I've got the tools to do it, but it's not something that lights my joy furnace, if you will. Being outside in that temperature is even less pleasurable. But actually, what happened while I was working on it was something that in retrospect hadn't happened to me in a while. I'm out there and we're on the side of the road and the hood is up and I've got the tools and the ratchet and I'm making the replacement and putting the new part on. And as I finish up, a gentleman pulls up in a minivan right next to me, stops and leans over and rolls down the window. It's an older minivan to where it's got the hand crank, so he didn't have the buttons that actually let it go down. And then he yelled across the car to me. He says, "Hey man, you need a hand." And I didn't think anything of it in the moment because I was finished. I was looking forward to getting inside, starting the car up, getting the heat going and just getting out of the outside. So I looked at him and responded without even thinking back at him, "No, I got it. Thanks. I appreciate it." And he waved and rolled up his window real quick, and then he went on about his way. Now, what caught me off guard was later, after we got the car home, after everything was all said and done, it suddenly occurred to me that it's been a while that something like that has happened. Somebody came up while I was in the middle of doing something or making a repair or in need and offered assistance. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened, and it's very possible that it has occurred and I just didn't notice it. But this was particularly, it stood out because it's cold outside, and here was a guy that offered assistance. I didn't know him, didn't recognize him. I couldn't pick him out again if I walked past him on the street. But he stopped, middle of his progress, middle of what was going on, and asked to assist. It really got me reflecting on, what does service look like for us, for our maintenance teams? And that's kind of a challenge, because in today's day and age, a lot of conversations are going around organizational systems. There are apps and programs and computers and data and spreadsheet and collecting data and all of the things that we are looking to do with our maintenance teams to ensure that they are being productive and we're tracking what's going on and we are accumulating data faster than I can ever remember. I mean, now the accumulation of data and information is not a new thing. It's not. When I was on site years and years ago and starting in my career, we had this data collection organization called a work order register. This was a metal bound folio that on the left-hand side of the metal, when you opened up the folio, there were these little itty bitty spikes that stood up. And on those spikes, you load work orders, and you would load them up because at the top edge of the work order was a strip of carbon. Now, for the youngsters in the audience, carbon was used on the back of paper so that if you wrote with a pen or a pencil on the top layer, the carbon would transfer to layers of paper below. So when we were handwriting work orders, this was a way that you would only have to write on one copy, but it would transfer to multiple copies underneath. In this case, each work order had 3 pieces of paper. You'd write on the top layer and it would go through those 3 pieces of paper, the 2 pieces of paper underneath the top one. Well, this folio had a strip of carbon on the back of the backside of the bottom layer of paper so that you could keep a log ongoing. And all you had to do was write the unit number, the resident's name, contact information on the top of this log. And then when you folded it farther out, you could write down and capture whatever other information you wanted, like air conditioning repair or plumbing repair, how much time it took, which technician the work order was assigned to. But this information was kept on paper. And once you finish going all the way down that sheet in that folio, you had a record. You had some data you could go back on. By reviewing the dates, you could see how many work orders you accomplished during the day. So even back in the Stone Ages, when I began being an apartment maintenance technician, we were collecting data, and which was great. It was good to go back and you could figure out strategies of what you're going to do. Well, today, management companies, operating systems, other pieces of information are being so integrated by the collection of data that a lot of what we as maintenance technicians are doing is coming up with more and more efficient methods of collecting data. Now, this is a good thing. It helps us in our operations and it helps us in our efficiency. But where this ties into the beginning story is in that data. Are we reinforcing the behavior that we want to see. And by that, I mean, for our maintenance techs that are out there in the field, when they're outside in sub-zero temperatures, what maybe unintentional reinforcement are we giving to our maintenance technicians for what a completed work order looks like? Now, the reason why this comes up is because when I take out the apps that I use of various kinds and types, we're collecting information. Information, much like that old journal or that old folio that we used to collect it on. But what information is actually being collected? Quite frequently, that information is the date and time that the work order came in, the date and time of completion, and how long it actually took us to complete a work order, start to finish. Okay, those are good. That's good information. And yet I'm really, really struck by the fact that this gentleman came up to me while I'm working on something, and he went out of his way to ask if he could assist. In other words, he was on his way somewhere else. And because he slowed down and stopped and offered assistance, it's going to take him longer to get to wherever he is. That's going above and beyond what's expected. When I worked for the National Apartment Association, and whenever I speak today at conferences and am out and around, the number one question, the most often question I'm asked by people in positions of leadership is, how long should it take a maintenance technician to complete a task, a something, whatever it is? And my answer for the longest period of time has been, and still is to this day, when you lease an apartment, how long does it take you to lease an apartment? How long? Yes, there are standards and go into, and that's a longer discussion and a different one than what I'm looking to get at here. For our work orders and the service requests that we are doing, I almost think there are two separate conversations that need to occur at some point. One of those conversations is the physical trade. How long does it take to replace an outlet? Take out the old outlet, disconnect the wires from the back, correctly install the new wires in the back of the outlet, install the outlet into the wall, and put the cover back onto it. How long does that take? Well, if we're looking at it just as a task, as a specific thing, depending on your property, it could be anywhere from 30 minutes, roughly 30 minutes start, finish, 15, 30 minutes, something like that, door to door, all the way up to 4 to 6 hours. Yeah, the 4 to 6 hours was at a property that I worked at years ago. It's one I use as an example, but true story. When the property was built, they ran the electrical before the drywall, common practice. But what's not common practice is that you install the receptacles before the drywall. Normally there's, wires that stick out of the wall. But in this case, they actually installed the receptacles before the drywall went up. And when they put the receptacle into the electrical box, they pulled the wire tight and then stapled the wire to the studs inside the drywall. In other words, at this property, in order to replace the outlet, you had to actually cut the drywall above the receptacle, pull the wire from the back of the receptacle into that wall, install a renovation box, make an electrical connection, put the cover on the box. Then you could run with the additional wire from that connection box down to the original box Then you could install the receptacle, put the cover back on, but now you've got a hole in the drywall above the box somewhere. That required you to repair the drywall. Hence, 6 to 8 hours, a couple of different trips. So it does depend. That's an extreme case, but it's a case in reality that just looking at the specific time that is required to complete a service request may not present a full story. Now, that full story is where I think the second piece of information that we need to be sure somewhere we're collecting. I think that second piece of information could actually be collected or correlated by a customer survey of service. And that's where we find back to our story. That gentleman that pulled up next to me, he was offering service, not just service to hit a checkbox on done. He went above and beyond. And if we're looking for our maintenance technicians to provide above and beyond, we have to define that. If we're only reinforcing that good service is checking a box, fine. Get in, get out, and get on. Something broken, I fixed the something broken, done, I'm out. But that's a problem in today's day and age where our customers, our residents, and our prospective residents no longer just want something done. They want it customized. They want it on their time frame. They want to make appointments. Something that when I started out on site, that was unheard of. You call because your toilet's clogged, and the only answer that our residents expected was, we'll get there as quickly as possible. And we would. Now we get calls from residents who are working from home. They're working remotely and they want to set up a time. I understand it. I mean, I'm talking into a camera right now that I have to orchestrate my day around to ensure that I don't have any phone calls come in, my cell phone is on quiet, or the distractions are minimized. And I can get that. If our residents are on a Zoom call or a WebEx call or a whatever, they can't be interrupted because they're working from home. That's a new paradigm. Being able to schedule service, that's something different. Maybe our resident that has a clogged toilet doesn't want us to come between the hours of 2 and 5 in the afternoon. Well, if it's 1:30, that means I can't go to actually fix that toilet until tomorrow. But that goes against our customer service guidelines, meaning if we are keeping track of only time to complete, we are providing good service while the data we're collecting shows otherwise. So what I'm getting at, or to kind of summarize this up, what kind of service are we reinforcing? Matter of fact, let's talk about some of the things that maybe we should be reinforcing with our maintenance teams, some expectations that we lay out that may not be collected on the data, on the work order, in the app, on our phone, on the tablet. Maybe things like this aren't collected there. And yet, maybe we should offer these as requirements or as needs for our maintenance technicians. These behaviors are the behaviors that we're expecting from our team members. For instance, a habit I still have today whenever I go into a home front door. Matter of fact, I still do it at my own house. I picked it up when I was on site, and I still keep it today. And if I'm not paying attention, I will actually do it when I'm on the road and I go into a hotel. That habit is wiping my feet outside of wherever I'm about to go in. Now, not the hotel lobby, but I mean the door to my room. I will stand outside, and when I put the key card on the key, I'll rub my feet before going in. I got that as a habit when one of my mentors showed me that that's what he does. And I do it as well. I started doing it then, and I still do it today. Maintenance technicians, if you're listening to this, do yourself a favor. Get in the habit. You will be amazed at residents noticing that. Even better if it's safe for you to do so. Knock on the door, they answer. When you ask if you can come in and take a look at solving whatever it is, then in front of the resident, put on the little booty shoe covers. If it's safe, be aware. If you have floors or the type of covers that you're using, it may not be safe for you to use those booties. They can create a trip hazard or a slip hazard. So whichever is careful. The point here is that we do something above just the normal expected. You're expected to walk through the door. Well, the step above that is to make sure that your shoes are clean before going into the resident's apartment. What if when we're in talking with a resident, we smile? Now, did you notice a change in my voice just now? That change occurred because when I started talking, I didn't have a smile, but as I talked, I smiled. You'll notice a change in your voice. Your residents will notice as well. And in the same way, me talking into a microphone, and for those of you who are not looking on video, you can notice just by listening closely to the change in my voice from when I'm smiling and when I'm not. Maybe I'm psychologically making that bigger difference bigger than what it is. But the reality is it occurs. And the reason why I'm saying it and pointing it out is something as small as a smile, especially when something crisis oriented has happened. A water pipe has broken, a shelf has fallen down in a resident, a doorknob has come off. We're responding. Be pleasant in your response. Be positive. In other words, if something has occurred, a shower bar has come down, instead of replying to the resident, yeah, that's a piece that's lacking in integrity. In other words, it's cheap to begin with. Don't point those things out. It's time for a new one. It's time for an upgrade. Look, I have a new one that I will go to the shop right now and get. Or because there was enough information on the work order, even better, I brought with me this new and improved one that I'm going to put up using a different anchor, fastener, or mount. All of these things are positive changes that we're making. Especially if we go into a resident's apartment and that resident is having a rough day, showing up with a solution, not a redescription of the problem, can actually change one of our residents' outlooks on life. And these are things, again, that don't get caught in the app or the data that we're collecting. And it's methods of going above and beyond. Because this is the beginning of 2025, a new year, there's a lot of people on the social media networks. I've seen them all over LinkedIn of this is going to be my word for the year. This is what I'm focusing on this year. This is the book I'm going through, or these are the New Year's resolutions, plans, or prescriptions that are being done for this year. And those are great. Those are fantastic. One of them, and I wish I could remember who, had this sign up on LinkedIn that said, be the change that you want to see in the world. And that has really stuck with me. And as we finish up our conversation today, I would like to leave that with you. But we're going to turn it around so it's in context, maybe even to have a maintenance mindset. And it's this statement here. If you had to call somebody into your home to perform service, what would you want that to look like? To paraphrase that statement that was on social media, be the service that you want to see. Even if we're not collecting that data in an app, on a service request, on a work order, either whether it's digital or on paper, be the change that you want to see. Be the service that you want to see. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic week, much warmer than I've been here lately. And I'll see you somewhere.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Maintenance Mindset. I hope you take away ideas that apply to your current and future career goals. Please check out Maintenance Mindset Minute to hear short-form, high-impact, applicable, maintenance-centered information. Whatever you do today, do it with a maintenance mindset. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities. I'll see you somewhere.